Next, we're going to move into the afternoon and just have a session to really start thinking more about specific solutions. We're going to hear about some programs that the Montana Department of Commerce has to support kind of some of maybe the more traditional programs folks think about when they're doing housing development. And then we're going to move outside of the box and hear from some folks that are doing some innovative things. So first here, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Kathy Plettenberg. She is with the Montana Department of Commerce Community Development Division. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, and I don't have your
It's all right. I'm sure you'll catch up with me. Hi, I'm Kathy Plettenberg, and I manage the Home CDBG and Housing Trust Fund programs. HOME is the Home Investment Partnership Program. Our end result there is residences. The Community Development Block Grant Program, otherwise known as the CDBG, is the most incredibly flexible program, and our end result there is to help people who are primarily 51% low to moderate income. And then the Housing Trust Fund program is a brand new program of HUD. It comes from a brand new source, a non-tax source. It's based on basis points from Fannie Mae mortgages, and so that was set up back in 2009. But of course, we all know what happened to the real estate market about then, and it took a while for that fund to build sufficiently so that they could do a distribution. And this 2016 is the first year they did do a distribution. So we've written our Housing Trust Fund allocation plan. It's been approved, and we took some preliminary applications in the fall, and we're going to receive full applications in the spring. So that's kind of what we're about. In our unit, the Community Development Division, we also have the Treasure State Endowment Program, the Coal Board, and we house quality schools, but the legislature did not fund it this last year. So primarily the ones that, the programs that you would look at for assisting you in housing as far as infrastructure would be TSEP, but then also CDBG can do all kinds of interesting things. One of the things that occurred to me this morning as we were talking is what is the definition of fair? And fair doesn't mean everybody gets the same thing. Fair means everybody gets what they need. So that's what's fair. And so one of the things that I was thinking of is another statistic that I saw recently that was interesting to me. Now I'll be 56 years old this summer. I was born in 1961. And I saw a statistic that said in 1962, of course, households then were usually dad, mom, some kids. Mom usually stayed home. Dad went to work. That a man working minimum wage, supporting a household in 1962 could afford to purchase a house on a single income. Now, minimum wage in Montana is $16,952 if you work a single full-time job. And, of course, the Fed's a little lower. It's $15,080. But when it comes to fair, one of the things that we're working at the Department of Commerce is fair housing. We're working right now on an affirmative fair housing plan. And almost every city has had CDBG money infused in it at some point in the past. And one of the obligations of every city, but because we use CDBG money to leverage that a little bit, is to have a fair housing resolution. And one of the things that people often don't understand is that they're not just like passing a resolution so that they can get the money, even though that's a lot of times what seems to happen. But fair housing is an effort on the part of the civil rights law to go beyond, and I'm kind of a little bit off track here, but I'm trying to give you a tool. The obligation of the local government to affirmatively further fair housing means more than just enforcing non-discrimination. Discrimination was institutionalized for so many years that it needs to be actively pushed back. And so as you consider things like lot sizes and unit sizes, you should be screening, or how much land are you zoning if you've got zoning? How much land are you setting aside for this use or that use? You should be using your fair housing commitment that you probably already have on the books to determine whether or not there's a disparate impact by upholding those other situations, are you actually sort of in violation of your own, I don't mean violation, but are you really considering whether that's fair to insist that all your housing has to be 1,000 square feet? So there's an idea, there's a tool for you. All right, the other thing that we probably didn't mention when we were talking a little bit about back and forth between housing in Livingston versus housing in Bozeman or Big Sky or Belgrade or any of the local regional community is that HUD also includes transportation in the idea of how much does your house cost. And I don't know about you, does somebody in here set their own energy costs? Oh, no? Oh, are you off the grid? Oh, okay. Lucky you. Anyway, but is your car solar? Are ya? So yeah, I mean, none of us can control when gas goes up to $3.50 a gallon, and I think we've all paid that at some point in the past decade anyway. And we all breathe a sigh of relief when it drops below $2.50. I remember when you used to be able to get about half a tank for $3 in high school, so you could cruise the drag. Doesn't happen anymore. Anyway, let's move on. I've got a clicker. What do I push? Not that. Not that. There we go. So HOME is the Home Investments Partnership Program, and it is the largest federal block grant. And like I said, at the end, we expect to get residences. And the eligible activities under HOME are to build, buy, or rehabilitate affordable housing. Under rehabilitation, there's 15 years of affordability required. Under building, it's 20 if it's new. Buying has its own interesting, depending on how much is invested, because HOME is primarily the program that helps first-time home buyers. That we will help buy down the cost of the house, provide down payment assistance, and those kinds of things for first-time home buyers. And then we also, a lot of those LIHTC projects were also a piece of the pie, usually not as large as LIHTC is, but it is a grant, so it goes into that project, and while it comes with some obligations, it helps to reduce the cost of the overall project so that it can cash flow through the whole affordability period. So I'm busy waiting for somebody to do this for me. No, it's right. Okay, so we want, with everything that happens in community development, I see on the agenda that I'm supposed to be discussing housing needs assessment, but I'm going to kind of give you a little slant on that. Everything that we do, in the Community Development Division, we're divided into two bureaus, the Planning Bureau and the Grants Bureau, and I work on the Grants Bureau side. But we work hand in hand with the Planning Bureau, which means we want to be sure that when it's time to come for a CDBG grant, that you've considered not only what you want, if you're going to, do sidewalk improvements, that you've also considered what condition is your water and wastewater infrastructure in? What condition is your housing market in? What condition is your economic development? Because there's a CDBG economic development portion too. So we really want you to start thinking holistically about all the things that are going on in your community so that we don't come in as some weird piece of the pie. We actually, just some weird pie piece, let's put it that way, as opposed to a piece of some actual whole pie that all fits together neatly. And so we would like to hear about what your local needs and priorities are, that you've taken some time to examine those, and that we would like to expand and strengthen partnerships, because we also, in addition to being the Community Development Division, we also have the Business and Tourism Division. And so there's all kinds of things happening down there. There are grant monies available there. We work with the Main Street program. This isn't the Governor's Main Street program, it's another one. But it's about waymaking and signage and downtown facades and welcoming people to your community. So there's all kinds of things happening that way. And then building capacity, because we do pay, at least in CDBG, not so much in home. Home pays soft costs. But the idea is there just aren't a lot of people out there that have the kind of expertise we need. And we need to build that constantly. So that's an important piece. And then mobilizing and leveraging community resources. So wherever we can find extra dollars, whether it's, oh my gosh, things going so fast. We want to be able to take advantage of that. Thank you. So let's, CDBG. So we develop and preserve affordable housing and then services. So one of the things, for instance, I saw on somebody's sheet about the LEAP program, that one of the things you're working on is downtown sidewalks. Well, CDBG lays out specifically some categories of people that are presumed to be LMI, and one of those categories are people with disabilities. And so if when you're redoing your sidewalks, you're going to have an obligation to meet ADA requirements, if you came to CDBG for a grant, you would automatically get 100% LMI because you don't put in those ADA improvements for anybody except disabled people. Nobody else needs them. So that's completely spelled out. So if you wanted CDBG money to help you do that portion of the project, you'd have to mark it out and find out just how much it costs for those, the crossings and the curb cuts and all of that. CDBG is there for you. And then also to create and retain jobs. So I just talked to somebody this morning about a hospital in their community where they're talking about redoing some stuff, and it will mean additional jobs. So there we go. So you can do acquisition of real property. That's with an intent, of course. Relocation and demolition. Demo is always a nice thing. And of course, we want you to demo either to reduce blight or to create something new and wonderful. For instance, if you have rundown housing that is a blight on the community but has a connection underneath it, we can pay to demo it, replace the connection to the main, and help you place a new modular home, for instance, on a foundation there for sale. So, and we have a great program to, specifically a non-competitive program for cities to do that and develop their own revolving loan funds. And then also to do all kinds of things. The Park County Senior Citizen Center, that was CDBG project. The Housing Trust Fund program is this new program I was telling you about. And grants are awarded to recipients. And the idea is to create an increase in the supply of housing for people who are of extremely low income. So that's the below 30% of area median income. And these are folks that are generally either homeless or at risk of homelessness all the time. When you think about that, that's under $20,000 a year. So, if it's you and your 3 kids and you've got less than $20,000 a year, the chances of you being able to find a good, secure home are pretty slim. And if you hit one emergency, things could get really serious really fast. So this is to try and make certain that there are enough secure places for people who are extremely low income. And it's about really about permanent housing. That's the idea. And so we'll be doing those grants. So that's a 2-phased application process. I mentioned that before, and we're about to do our first grants. So as far as housing needs assessment, what we want you to do is gather data, ask questions. And so I didn't make enough handouts for everybody, but it's time. There's a handout.
You can take a little bit of time to tell us about it.
Can I? It's just a list of questions that you can ask yourself when you're doing a housing needs assessment. You gather the data, you create an action plan, and then you call Commerce's planning division. And then I also brought a copy of our very recently published market analysis report outline for an actual project. So there's another handout for you. And then because on this last page, there's all our contact information, and I forgot to bring cards. This is this PowerPoint that has our contact information on the back page. So, ta-da, I'm done.
Quickly, what sort of support do you have to conduct a housing needs assessment?
A housing needs assessment, we have lots of support, lots of technical support for communities. So we have an entire bureau dedicated to doing all kinds of planning things and lots of expertise. So,
great.
Okay. Oh, and our grant maximums, there is no cap, no dollar cap on home. There is no dollar cap on Housing Trust Fund, and CDBG is $450,000.